my friend and mentor, Brother Ray. Brother Ray Fitz is President Emeritus of the University of Dayton and a professor of social change in the College of Arts and Sciences. He teaches courses in leadership and building community, the city and social justice, and urban justice and the Catholic social tradition. Brother Ray served as president of the University of Dayton from 1979 to 2002. Upon his retirement from the presidency, the Board of Trustees named the Fitz Center of Leadership and Community in his honor. In February of 2015, he received the Association of Catholic Colleges and Universities Reverend Theodore M. Hesburgh Award for Outstanding Leadership in Catholic Higher Education. Brother Ray's involvement in the Greater Dayton community, including co-chairing the Greater Dayton Commission on Minority Inclusion, chairing the Committee on the Place-Based Two-Generation Approach for Opportunity Creation, and is convener of the Catholic Collaborative for West Dayton. He also serves on the Omega Community Development Corporation Board of Directors and is working with the CDC to set up a two-generation approach in the soon-to-be-built Center for Families and Children. He has been a community champion for racial and economic justice and serves on the Marianist Family Council of Greater Dayton and is the convener of the Temporalities Committee. So I'll hand it off to you, Brother Ray.
Well, thank you very much, Abby. One of the things I wanted to do to start off with is to really congratulate the organizers of this assembly. Not only did we do it virtually, but we show so much maturity in what's happening with the Marianist lay family. It's really exciting to see the celebration of our founders, the kind of coming together of our common heritage in terms of spiritual practices, building of community. And I think with some real maturity in terms of being able to reach out beyond just ourselves to really do, as Brother Bernie said to us, to be economic, racial, and ecological justice. So I'm going to, if you don't mind, I'm going to read through my comments because I'm going to have a number of people participate in this process. So one of the reasons for actually proposing to make this presentation at the assembly is I do think as we move forward every couple of years, we need to talk about family councils. What are we learning together? What are we doing? How are we making real progress? Because I think we can make a real progress in terms of the importance of family councils in the major regions of the United States. The Family Council in Dayton got here started in March 2012 with the drafting committee. And Matt Dunn was on that, Jim Fitz, myself, Joe Kozar, Sister Laura Lemming, Ann Petratus, Jack Somerville, A.J. Wagner, and Joan McGinnis Wagner. And the concept was that the family coordinator, pardon me, would have 4 to 6 lay members, 1 member of the FMI, and 3 members of the SM community. And there should be a gender and age balance in the whole process. There was going to be a coordinating committee that would work with the 3 offices of religious life, education, and temporalities. And Brother Tom Giordino facilitated an initial group to develop the mission statement. The mission of the Marianist Family Council is to facilitate greater connection among individuals and communities, promoting unity, fostering a shared heritage, and working towards achieving a deeper and broader common ground amongst the Marianist family of Greater Dayton. The Dayton Marianist Family Council supports collaboration and communication among the Dayton Marianist family by fostering greater connections, ongoing formation, community outreach, service, and advocating for persons in need. We engage all to bear witness to the fullness of the Marianist charism and the service of the church and the world. So over those years since we began organizing in 2012, I think the things has developed a real maturity under the different leaderships that we've had of the Family Council. So currently there are regular meetings of the council, so every other month we meet, and then on the off months the committees meet to bring forward initiatives and ideas. We worked on a lot of communication efforts with the Marianist family, and I want to encourage you to take a look at the website Dayton Marianist Family, all one word.com. And I think you'll see a lot of interesting things there. The listing of all the members, I'm not sure we got all the members, but we're really working to do that. The calendar of events and formation resources that are available, and a listing of our different Marianist sponsored ministries. I think we've developed a kind of a pattern of major activities. There's an annual Marianist Regional Prayer Day that's organized by the council. One of the interesting and exciting kind of things is the Family Work Day at the Mission of Mary Farm. And then something that's always been very exciting and really a fun thing to do is called the Marianist Family Fun Day at Governor's Island. One of the things we did 2 years ago was to have a day of discernment about urban solidarity initiatives. And we gathered about 45 to 50 people out at Bergamo. Our Zeal Committee put together a very thoughtful prayer service and a Eucharist. We had Amaha Salisi, who is a community organizer, to provide an insight into poverty and racism in Greater Dayton. Amaha is, as I said, is a community organizer and one of the chief organizers of the Gem City Market, a community-owned grocery store in West Dayton. One of the things that we did that day, after reflection and conversation, lots of dots on different sheets, we came up with 3 urban solidarity initiatives, and I'll say more about these in the temporalities report. The Mission of Mary Cooperative, Dakota Center, and the Five Oaks Corpus Christi project. And again, just as I really encourage you to take a look at the Dayton Marianist Family one-word site. And I'd like to tell you how we're going to organize this activity. We're going to ask next Sister Leanne, who is the head of our Zeal Committee, to talk. Martha Serene to talk about instruction. I'll come back and talk about temporalities work. We're going to have our fearless leaders, Sarah Stone and Sister Gabby Bebo, to talk about the challenges of leadership. And then Father Ted Cassidy will give a short report on the emerging racism efforts that are taking place. So take it away, Sister Leanne.
Hi, everybody. So on our Zeal team, which meets in between our bi-monthly meetings of the whole, we're asking the question of how can we support our growth and formation as a Marianist family in this region through prayer and cultivating our Marianist spirituality. Secondly, what faith development events in the region can we sponsor, co-sponsor, or encourage? So this would include, in addition to the big events I'm going to talk about, other things that might be sponsored by a Marianist entity or a Marianist presence we want to encourage. And we include those in the monthly newsletter that goes out to everyone on our leadership, on our regional list that our leadership team puts out. The big prayer events we're coordinating includes the Marianist World Day of Prayer, the Regional Founders Day celebration, and coordinating with the planning for the other big commemorations. We've had a number of those in recent years with all the bicentennials. We look at prayer at all of our other events, so at our meetings together, composing rituals of gratitude or commissioning send-offs when members complete their terms on our team, prayer at our service days, our days of discernment and reflection, at our Family Fun Day at Governor's Island, and integrating intercessions that speak to our Marianist local, regional, and international concerns and just keep us aware of concerns in our region. So some of the ways we encourage Marianist family participation and presence at regional faith and justice events that other organizations sponsor is the Good Friday Peace and Justice Walk in Dayton, to really have our presence known there as a Marianist family. We also took an active role in an interfaith cleansing prayer service following the Ku Klux Klan rally that was held in Dayton, and we look for other opportunities like that where we can really give support needed in our region. We ask, how can we be creative and inclusive and responsive to the needs of our local Marianist family? So when it came around to the October celebration of the World Day of Prayer, we combined with celebrating the FMI bicentennial, or noting the 200th anniversary of the educational legacy of the Society of Mary-sponsored institutions. When the snow day canceled our Founders Day event, we sent out a prayer aid that people could use in their communities and families that used some of the aspects of that day. And in developing our sense of who we are as communities, we've invited every community in our region, Lay, FMI, and SM, and it included everybody in Ohio, to share a PowerPoint slide or two of what they're committed to, how they're bringing Christ light to the world. This gave us a bank of slides to use with our Founders Day celebration, but one we can use for other promotions of who we are and getting to know each other. The Marianist World Day of Prayer International resource doesn't always arrive much in advance, so translating and adapting it for sensibility of the American ear sometimes takes time. And we've exchanged information with other family councils behind the scenes. So the collaboration with San Antonio and Dayton has been helpful as we work and adapt it. And we've incorporated the international prayer in dialogue with local and regional concerns. So featuring some local speakers, such as our brothers from Togo, to speak to us about that shrine. Sue and Jim Boat spoke to us about the International Assembly when the shrine was featured of an Asian site. And we also are really looking at discernment and prayer about our ministries and how we might respond, and continuing to encourage and nurture that prayer. We look forward to collaborating across our Marianist family, other regions. So keep in touch with us so we might share those resources with one another. I'll pass the baton.
Hi, everyone. I'm Martha Serene, and I'm, can everyone hear me? Thumbs up? Okay. I'm on the instruction or education committee, as Brother Ray said, and our goals are to create and promote ongoing formation. So we had lots of brainstorming, and more recently, it seemed like there was a desire to gather. So we have decided in the past few years to concentrate and focus on reviving Marianist Manna, which we can't really take credit for creating. We just revived it and expanded it. And so what that looks like is we have a topic, we ask someone to present, and we will gather for a few minutes, about 15 minutes before the presentation, have a presentation that it could include various things. So discussion, small group sharing, prayer, obviously. And then some socializing. So everything is probably about 90 minutes long. And some of the topics that we've had, Sister Gabby, I think, kicked us off with our talking about Adele. We've had the System of Virtues, a preview of the Saragossa retreat, and then we did do a virtual manna, which was good. So in the Easter season, so that was a great experiment in all of this pandemic, and it went well. So I think that what Matt and Margie were talking about, we're very excited in partnering with them, and again, that broader vision of formation, you know, the year-long initiatives that Margie was talking about earlier, and the modules. I mean, that's wonderful. We can help promote that, and you know, the wonderful resources that we have, trying to connect people with NACNIS, and we have fabulous leadership, and Sister Gabby and Sarah in the newsletters that they put out and things like that. So that's very helpful, you know, to promote that and to keep going. It just seems like there's a desire for more collaboration with communities. So, you know, we're looking at in the future to do more, maybe some joint meetings, joint formation retreats. And I'm hoping that the national things that are coming out, we can just pair up with and use and promote in the Dayton area. You know, some of the challenges include, you know, when it comes to formation, there's people all over the place. There's people that have grown up in the Marianist tradition. There's people that are new to it. So when you're trying to present a program, you know, you don't want to overwhelm new people, but you don't want to be the same old thing for people who have been doing it. So that's kind of a challenge. And time, you know, we're all volunteers. We all have our jobs. We all have other ministries and things that we're involved in. And so it's tough. And even when you're gathering, and you all know this, trying to find a date that will work for everyone, that doesn't exist. So to try to pick the best, and in between all the wonderful things that the other committees are doing, you know, Sister Leanne talked about all that they're doing, you know, sneaking things in there for formation. But really, you think about everything we do, formation is part of that. So if it's like anything else, we support each other, and hopefully we support, you know, the other committees as well, that we're not just independent entities. So, you know, we can always grow more, we could always do more. And I think another challenge is recruiting. You know, we need to recruit more people to get more help and to expand. But for right now, we decided in these next couple of years, we're ready for the next step. I think these next couple of years have ended, and we're ready to expand beyond just the Marianist Manna. But we've had really good response to that, and it's been a great formation and our goal of gathering people from different communities. So thank you. I know I probably didn't even go the whole 5 minutes, but thank you, and I will pass it on. I think back to you, Brother Ray.
Good. Yes, I'm going to give the Temporalities Committee, since I'm the convener of the group. I just might let you know some of the people. Kateri Dillon Sonnet, Nancy Wisty, Emily Farrig, Father Ted Cassidy, and myself as convener. And one of the roles that we have is to make arrangements, facility arrangements when we have programs. But we've really decided on a strong social justice focus with our urban solidarity initiatives. And as Brother Bernie said, we're focusing on racial, economic, and ecological justice. So I'm going to report on the three solidarity initiatives. Many of you probably know about the Mission of Mary Cooperative. It's, you know, I like to always say it's the first lay-sponsored apostolic work in the United States. So they're a 501c3 organization, thanks to the help of the province of the United States. The board of the collaborative is Rob Broderick is our chair, Ann Hurd is our secretary, Andy Batinghouse is our treasurer, Mike Schultz is our executive director, and Steve Mackel, the farm manager. Beth Schultz is on the board, Tom Pieper, and myself. And one of the things that's just really exciting to me is to see how strong these members of the board have internalized the Marianist charism. It's just really, you know, deeply edifying for somebody at my age to see the young people really step forward. The mission of the Mary Cooperative is to be a catalyst and partner for sustaining urban development in a community of Dayton, Ohio. And it's investing in the inner east side of Dayton by transforming vacant plots into vegetable gardens, and partnering with neighbors on sustainability development. Let me talk about a little bit of some of the accomplishments. Again, because this is very mature, there's lots of things that have been happening. One of their focuses on developing partnerships for sustainable urban development, focusing on energy sustainability. And one of the great accomplishments is, I believe, the development of the first in Dayton area net zero facility with the headquarters at Silver Lane. Another exciting thing for somebody like myself that's, you know, worked in the poverty issues there's a real excellent program with the Five Rivers Health Institute for Women's Health. And the Mission to Mary Collaborative delivers weekly boxes of veggies to about 100 low-income women, mothers, and when they're doing their weekly physical. And the mothers are from some of the most impoverished neighborhoods in Dayton. So I really think they've also helped helping the women learn how to cook these vegetables. Another thing is operating an urban food system, the two-tiered community support agricultural program, where some people pay a little bit higher price for the food so that the collaborative can provide it to those in the neighborhood at a lower price. They're operating an urban sustainability learning center. Lots of UD work going there on Lincoln Hill, big facility. So if you get to Dayton, it's really interesting to look over that facility. Experiential learning from Dayton public schools and Catholic schools. And they're engaged with, finally, with the Twin Towers neighborhood. And again, an example there is that they've created a vegetable garden right next to Ruskin School, where the students are actually developing the garden and they're using the vegetables for their daily lunches. So that's, I think, pretty exciting. I would ask you to visit the website. It's one of the best developed websites I've seen, missionofmary.org, all one word. I think you'll see some very exciting things that are happening there. A second initiative is the Dakota Center. The Dakota Center is a community center in Inner West Dayton. Its founders were Father Phil Howley, Marianist priest, Dean William Hoban, who was a dean of the School of Business. And the Marianist family involved presently working in partnership there is Abby Serene, Lauren Wolford, and then Father Jim Fitz and Jean Nicholson were part of the original planning team. I think the project there at Dakota Center is the garden. It's really intended to get the students involved in an after-school program, getting them to maintain the garden and utilizing the food at the center, and also being able to distribute food to families that are part of the center. Currently, there's a team of volunteers that Abby and Lauren have been working together to sustain the garden over this more difficult time. And of course, every one of our projects has run into some kind of a problem. This one has been lead in the soil there at Dakota Center. But again, they've been very ingenious in using sunflowers and raised beds to help them. The team will be hosting a volunteer day during the summer, later in the summer. The Five Oaks Neighborhood Initiative. So Five Oaks, if you know Dayton, it's a neighborhood over by the Dayton Art Institute. Kateri Dillon, Nancy Woosty, Crystal Sullivan, and Father Ted Cassidy, and then members of the Marianist Novitiate community are also working there. One of the problems and challenges that they met was, if you're going to have this meeting on Archdiocese of Cincinnati premises, you have to have liability insurance. And thanks to, again, to the Marianist of the United States, province of the United States, they were able to help us with that process. The team there is using what I call a good community organizing approach. They're really putting together listening sessions for the neighborhood. They're working with Our Lady of Grace Parish. And I think once the COVID-19 pandemic is passed, and God help us with that, the team would like to really hold prayer sessions and listening sessions with the neighborhood. The team is also participating along with the novitiate community of More Food for the Journey, which is held at the Corpus Christi Church. And the team is also organizing Marianist lay and religious communities to provide about 50 snack packs for participants for Food for the Journey. And the snack packs will also contain a prayer card that Crystal Sullivan and others are developing. So the final initiative of our thing is racism, that Father Ted will talk a little bit about the emerging activities there among the communities. I would just say, finally, finances of the council. How do we do that? We're pretty simple. Whenever we hold an event where there are facility charges and food is served, we ask for a free will offering and to cover the expenses. And that has worked with us so far. So I'd like to ask Father Ted to talk about the emerging racism initiatives that's coming out of the Marianist communities here in Dayton. Ted, so you got to get unmuted.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Brother Ray. I'm really happy to give this little report. Listening to all that's happened to the Family Council, I've been on it for 5 years. I can remember coming and joining it 5 years ago and wondering what it's all about. But I think the organization using the Marianist system and also the spirit we have, it's really wonderful what's happening. So my task is to talk about what we're going to try to do about racism. In May, the Temporalities Committee, we decided to develop a plan in which we would help the different Marianist communities in Dayton to work against racism. So we developed a plan that we would, in one meeting, invite people to understand the nature of racism, and secondly, a meeting to try to work against it. And then we found out that the Myco Theotokos lay community was already planning an implicit workshop for the whole Dayton Marianist family. And they wanted to invite Tiffany Taylor Smith, who is the executive director for Inclusive Excellence Education and Professional Development at UD. In her role there, she tries to make sure that there's a diversity training and diversity promotion at the University of Dayton. But because of the covert problem, that had to be canceled. And then we recognized the Temporalities Committee and also the whole Family Council recognized that it would be good to just follow what Myco Theotokos wanted to do. So we decided to follow their leadership. And after a while, they got together and they suggested that we have a process of inviting Tiffany Taylor Smith to lead us in not only an understanding of racism, but secondly, what we could do about racism. And they said there's various models that we could use for that. For example, we could have one workshop, or we could have different study models, or we could have touchstone conversations with the wider Marianist family. So what has happened now is Myco Theotokos has decided to ask the Marianist Family Council to develop an intergenerational committee of volunteers who would decide the best way to proceed. So at this point, the Family Council of Dayton is inviting people to join on this committee. And its purpose is to plan ways for the Marianist family to engage in learning and reflection and conversation about implicit bias and systemic racism in light of our Marianist identity. Can we develop a greater awareness of these things as individuals and as communities? How can we commit to anti-racism in the Marianist family and beyond? We envision facilitated virtual experiences plus opportunities for communities to commit to ongoing learning, and also ways we can work against racism in the city of Dayton. So that's what we're about. Thanks.
Brother Ray, you're muted still.
Okay, how's that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I botched the schedule a little bit, but I think we're really very pleased to have great leadership for it. And I asked Sarah and Sister Gabby to talk about the challenges of leadership.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah. And I came onto the Dayton Family Council 3 years ago, and I started on the education committee that Martha shared about. And this past year moved into the role of co-chair alongside Sister Gabby. And so Brother Ray just asked if we could share a little bit about some of the challenges and insights to leadership that we've experienced. So just a few things I had come up with in reflecting on my time in the council in this past year in the co-chair role was one, when I first started on the council, we were operating in the offices system, but I think we had lost a little bit of our vision of what each role or what the role that each office was to play and kind of what our direction was. And we were meeting every month as a whole council, and we would brainstorm and come up with a lot of ideas, but there wasn't a whole lot of consistent follow-up kind of in between those monthly meetings. And we had a hard time seeing any kind of, I guess, fruits of those conversations that we were having. So I think it was kind of in that second year, then we had a lot of conversations about re-outlining what the role of each of those offices was and what we wanted to see each office kind of develop, or the direction we wanted each office to sort of go. And we came up with the model that Brother Ray talked about at the beginning, where we would meet as a whole council, and then the following month we would meet just within our offices, and then the next month we would meet as a whole council. And structurally, we found that model to be really effective in kind of holding accountable our individual offices and being able to find time to meet together, but also then being able to come back together and continue to brainstorm as a whole council. So that's kind of like a logistical note of something that we found worked really well when we made that transition. The second thing, this has been mentioned as well, recruiting. So initially we would kind of put out and ask, if we had positions that were open on the council, if anyone was interested. Recently though, and kind of in this recruiting cycle, we're looking for at least one new member to join us in August. We've started to recruit more specifically for specific offices, since we now have a really clear outline of what the role and kind of what gifts we hope that people in each office will bring to the council. We recruit specifically for those offices. So right now we have a need for another person or two in our religious life office. So that's really what we're putting a call out for right now, is someone who feels that their gifts and talents would fit that office. And so that's kind of another, I think, change that sort of evolved over the last few years. I think Ray also touched on this at the beginning, but I think it's really important and something that's really valuable in the council, that we have representation from a variety of institutions, organizations, lay group, vowed religious across the city of Dayton, and a variety of, I guess, age differences as well. So we try to kind of get a wide, I guess, variety of input, representatives from the schools, from QAC, the Marianist parish in Dayton, so that we kind of try to bring together the input of all the Marianist entities in the city. Another thing that I think, as Gabby and I met at the beginning of our time as co-chairs, we kind of talked about some goals and things that we wanted to bring about, kind of leading the council. And our big thing for as co-chairs is communication and kind of trying to get, I guess, the Marianist family in Dayton sort of, in a sense, on the same page as far as what's going on, opportunities that are out there, because there are so many incredible things going on around the city. And we felt that there was at times a sense that, people didn't always know what was happening when, and there were a lot of mediums for how things were getting put out. And that's great. And those, Mission of Mary still has their own Facebook page, and there are still, people still advertise individually, but we kind of thought one of the goals of the council should be to create a medium that all of those things going on around Dayton and the Marianist world could be directed through one outlet. So, we started the monthly newsletters that go out once a month, and people can send in information or events, or if they're calling for volunteers, and that'll all get compiled into a monthly newsletter that gets sent out to our mailing list once a month. And then we also run a Facebook page and an Instagram that we use to advertise for upcoming events. And then people can also send dates and info for events that they would like to be advertised within the Marianist family that we can do via the social media accounts as well. One last note that I had is that we've been working also pre-pandemic with Sarah Wood and trying to get her to sit in on one of our meetings, just to kind of build our connection with MLC-NA. with the pandemic and everything that has happened, we've started meeting virtually, and we haven't quite got that to happen yet, but I know that's kind of one of our goals looking forward, is to maybe get her in on one of our meetings and just try to build that relationship that way as well. So I'm going to pass it over to Sister Gabby to kind of fill in any other insights that I maybe left out.
Yeah, well, Sarah, you covered a lot of good things. I'll just say like a little bit more about what we do as co-chairs. So I think the way that we see ourselves operating as co-chairs is just kind of having like a bird's eye view of what's going on in the council and being sort of the point people for other people who maybe want to propose something to the council, or you know, just have questions about the family council, that kind of thing. But I would say like a big part of what we do, like Sarah mentioned, is communication and facilitating communication. Something that we did a lot a couple of years ago was just to try to get a sense of what are the communities in the Dayton area that exist and that are still meeting. And so we really did some kind of like, you know, talking around to see like, okay, who are they and who are the sort of point people for the different communities that are still existing and meeting. So we also try to keep tabs on Marianist family, Marianist community activities in the area in general, not just in an institutional way, what's happening at UD, what's happening at, you know, the Mount St. John and the different Marianist apostolic works, but also just the communities. And I think our hope would be that we could get to a point where we could do some more work in terms of localized formation, and that if there was somebody in the area who was looking for a community or to start a community, that we could help facilitate that. We're not quite there yet. We're you know, still kind of growing, and we grow a bit every year, but that would be one of my hopes, is that we could do that. So yeah, like Brother Ray has mentioned and other people has mentioned, this is sort of what's worked for us. I think that when I've talked to other places about thinking about getting started with a family council, is just get some people from the different branches together and start meeting and have some ideas of what everybody's doing and go from there. You know, you don't have to, this is sort of developed organically over time. So yeah, I think that's all for us that I can think of. So I think we'll send it back to Brother Ray then for the next part.
So again, we're just open for questions. And again, maybe Abby, you're in a better position to handle the questions and parcel them out to us. I'm not sure I know exactly the best way to do that.
Yeah, if people have questions, we have about 10 minutes. So if anybody has any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat or any comments. But thank you all for sharing, because I think that it is one example of how a Marianist Family Council can be run. And you all have been so successful in Dayton, so I think it's a great example. And I think especially for councils that are just starting, it's a great example for people to look at. So there is one question in the chat, and it says, thank you for your informative report about the Dayton experience. Do you have suggestions for other areas where we are building or rebuilding a similar network?
So I would just re-echo Sister Gabby's comment about the concept of letting it grow organically. So I believe, you know, using good Marianist practices like the 3 offices. I often said Father Chaminade had the idea of synodality before Pope Francis by using the three offices together to working as a leadership group. I think that's pretty important. But again, I think it's the organic growth of the committee by people just working together to say, how can we make the Marianist family very strong and better interconnected? The one thing that, you know, expect surprises. So our temporalities committee was really working hard to think about racism. And then as Ted indicated, another community has already taken the initiative. And so our role then was to really make that, you know, be part of and let them take the leadership on that. So again, organic emergence, I think, is a really important part of it.
Excellent. And then another question is, how many local or regional family councils exist at this time, if you know that?
Well, I know the Northeast Council is functioning, but I don't know of others. And so maybe, like, if Jack Ventura is on the line or on the call, he can maybe say something about that.
Yeah, and we could maybe follow up in the chat as well. Another question that was in here is, do family councils only exist in the United States or across North America?
So again, you're getting beyond my competence. I don't know how to answer that question. Maybe Marcita Riley's on it, and they can talk about what's happening in the other parts of the world.
Yeah, someone put in the group that the San Antonio Council is rebuilding, California is rebuilding. So there are some councils that are going strong, just as Dayton is. There's one question I think that is specific to Dayton in here. It says, so much seems to be going on with your council. How do you balance between what is going on in each community and the citywide events? Is that ever an issue?
Sarah and Gabby, why don't you address that issue as our leaders?
I think this is one reason why having really good and open communication is important, because there might be, and this has actually happened recently, where a community, an individual Marianist community has an idea and the family council has an idea, and it's kind of the same idea. And so then it's like, let's collaborate. So having better communication allows us to, instead of like reproducing things, because that can be a danger, but instead to really collaborate. So this was related to the races that Father Ted mentioned with the Micah Theotokos community. They had an idea about having an ongoing, some kind of project about education and learning about racial biases. And so did the family council. So then it was like, well, let's get together and collaborate on this. So I think that's one thing that I would say.
Great.
Oh, can I add one other thing too about getting started? One of the things that I think was helpful for the Dayton Family Council is that I think it started by people meeting and then saying, okay, well, let's have some events that we'll plan together. And then I think those events that we're planning kept giving people reason to meet. And I think then it was like, okay, well, we need to grow beyond just doing these couple events every year. So some of the councils grow, like just starting or regrouping, maybe thinking of a couple events that you can plan together throughout the year that brings all the local Marianist family folks together. And then from there, maybe something will evolve.
Excellent. Thank you. So for those of you who ask questions about where the Marianist councils are and where they're developing, a lot of people put that in the chat. So feel free to take a look at that and get some of those questions answered. But there's a question in here. The Marianist Family Council of California is just beginning, and they just started their 3rd month, and they're very large geographically, so they exclusively meet via Zoom. They decided to just start meeting. Do you just see the future of meetings being all Zoom? How has that worked for your council, working via Zoom?
I can just mention that I think it's worked very productively. We're all getting used to using Zoom. I do think that face-to-face meetings, at least my preference is to do that. So we meet often in the basement of the Stone Mill Kiefer community basement and meet face-to-face. But that Dayton is a pretty confined geographical area. It sounds like California is going to, have a wide geographical area, and so I think Zoom is going to be an excellent way to for them to keep meeting on an ongoing basis. And I also think we've proven by this thing that national meetings can be held by Zoom and be very productive. So I think people use the best means available. I'm a proponent when we can have it of face-to-face meetings. I just get energized by face-to-face. But I also find this medium that we're using today a very helpful one.
Excellent. We might have time for one more question here. We've got about 2 minutes. So is it an important component when starting out to have something concrete to work on in addition to the intellectual and philosophical components? So maybe how do you balance those two things?
So again, I'm just looking at the history of how this has all worked. I really believe people got together, used the concept of the 3 offices as a way of moving forward. And I also believe that we just let it grow organically and then just kept holding each other accountable for results. I think that was the way that it actually worked best for us in Dayton.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, everybody. You had so many wonderful people presenting, so thank you for taking that time to be here and present. I think it was really informative for many different people, especially the family council starting out. I hope that everybody was able to get something from that presentation. So thank you, Brother Ray and your team. So next we will be transitioning to our final assembly event, which is Mass. It's from Holy Rosary. It's at Holy Rosary Parish, or hosted at Holy Rosary, which is a Marianist parish very close to St. Mary's University. Father John Thompson will be presiding, as he would have been our chaplain for the assembly if it were in person. So we're really grateful that they are allowing us to be part of their normal parish Mass. And thanks to Brother Mark Motes, we have been able to stream the Mass through this link, so we don't only have to do it through Facebook Live. So thank you all so much for coming together for this weekend, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Katie and Jess.
Great, thanks so much, Abby. I want to give another spectacular shout out to the entire assembly team. We have been working really, really hard behind the scenes, and I think we've even surprised ourselves with how smooth things have gone thus far. We'll see how it goes with the Mass, but we are just really gratified with how many folks have Zoomed in to be with us all weekend. And I did just want to take this time to officially pass the torch to your next chair of the next assembly, Jessica Uhlig. We don't know what the future holds, but it has been really spectacular. I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to my father, who invited me again back into all this Marianist craziness years ago to be his co-chair. And it's now been quite a long time of service for me in this role. Very, very excited to have reconnected with Jessica, and I feel like we are in able hands moving forward. So this is my official sign off in the role of your assembly chair. My gratitude and thanks. I'm really humbled, and turning it over to Jess.
Thank you, Katie. Yes, applause, applause. About 5 months ago, 4.5 months ago, 5 months ago, we realized that we may not have the opportunity to gather in person with this crazy thing called COVID-19. And we decided reluctantly, but we knew we had to be safe first, to put safety first, and to postpone. And postponing for a while almost sounded like canceling. And then we thought about it, and we thought about it, and we kept meeting. You know, every Monday night, we just kept meeting. We had a wonderful team that gelled well together. And we decided, you know what, there's momentum. People have these dates on their calendar. Let's figure out a way to provide an avenue to gather, to be in conversation, to be in prayer together, to be one family together. And thank you, Our Lady of Zoom, for making this happen. I am, again, we don't know what's going to happen next summer, but I do want to throw in that we are in the books at St. Mary's University. They, right away, everybody at housing and with facilities, they said, absolutely, we'll put you in. So July 15th through the 18th, 2021, we'll see, God willing, we'll be together in person for our assembly. And our theme is, let it be done to us, opening our hearts to the future. And it's still very timely within all the conversations that we've had this weekend and the challenges that we discussed, the crazy reality that we're living in our worlds with health issues, with institutional and systemic racism. And we still need to continue to challenge ourselves to open our hearts and to let it be done to us like it was to Mary, so that we continue this amazing legacy that we've all said yes to. So thank you again. Please keep an eye on your email, because we will send an evaluation. If we have to do this next summer like this, we want to know, and thank goodness that it's gone so well so far. So I thank you everybody again for joining us, and we will continue to be in touch. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you in Mass, virtual.
Okay. Thanks so much. And then we're going to do one last screen share here before we link with Brother Mark Motes. Oh, goodness. Hang on one second. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Hang on. Hopefully this works. Thank you, everyone.